Hey everybody, so we've been going through this series and we've had a couple pastors go. Pastor Tyler spoke on the look of love last week, and then Pastor Danielle spoke on to look out for others and to look around for the people that surround you. And then Pastor Seth, the very first week, spoke of look within ourselves for what needs to change and stuff. And so my sermon this week is called Look Ahead. I'm going to be preaching from Philippians 2:12 through 30. It's a pretty long message, pretty long passage, so I'm going to break it up as I go along. So look ahead, and my first point is we must look for God's will. Verses 12 and 13 say, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose." And I know that I talk about this a lot when I preach, I feel like, but I think it's so important. It's just part of me, and like the things that I went through is like I've realized that God has this perfect will for me, and I just need to seek him and to find it. And I think I have a 15-year-old sister, and I'm pretty chill and calm, and she's like the complete opposite. She is dramatic. Everything that happens is the end of the world. She's had like 35 boyfriends in the past like 3 weeks, and so she's always like, "Oh, he broke up with me." I'm like, "Cheyenne, it's not going to be that big a deal. You just need to zoom out of the situation. It's going to be okay. You're not even going to remember his name in a week." And so I'm like, you have to zoom out, like, and I'm trying to train her to like look at the big picture and like not date in high school and to zoom out of the situation. But like her big thing that she's been on now is like, what does God want to do with me in my life? Like, what's my big purpose? And I think all of us have asked that at one point, like, God, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Like, I'm not here for a reason. You just didn't stick me here. Like, what is the reason I'm here? And I don't think that God doesn't like maps. God doesn't like, okay, we're gonna go on a Seattle trip. We're gonna go here, then we're gonna go here, and then we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this. Like God doesn't do that. God doesn't show us. He does sometimes, but for the most part, he doesn't show us the entire big picture, all the steps. Like, there's a reason that God says the word is the lamp to our feet. Lamps don't shine the whole situation. They shine right here, and one step at a time. And I always think about, like, your word is a lamp to my feet. It's not going to show me the entire thing. Like, we're going to take this one day at a time, and God's like, you're going to trust me, and you're going to like walk with me and seek me. So, and if God showed us the whole situation, we wouldn't really rely on him too much. We wouldn't be worried about like where am I supposed to go next and like seeking him. And we did these word studies and all these commentary studies, and I wanted to mention that fear and trembling here, like I remember my dad, he's a youth pastor. I remember him saying that one time in a service, and I was like, fear and trembling, that's scary, like I think of like a scary movie or something, but it's not that. It's like holy reverence. Like God has all this under control, and he's holy, and I'm going to respect that, and I'm going to do what he has for me. And so my next point is look positively through the pain and the trials. Verses 14, 15, and 16 say, "Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. And then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain." It's like a cause and effect, an if-then statement. Do everything without grumbling and arguing so that you can be lights in this world. I remember my friend Dylan, every time, because I honestly do have the tendency to grumble and argue and complain about things sometimes, and he'll always go, "The complaint train," and that's when I know that I'm being too much. And so anyway, so this past 3 weeks, I'm technically in my senior year. I'm going to be in school 5 years. It's driving me crazy. But these past few weeks, I've just been crazy backed up in school, and I'm like, I'm going to fail all my classes. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Dr. Davis's class is just going to kick me out of Southeastern. And I'm just so over it. But God is like, this is like sharpening and molding you for the better. And you don't need to complain about it the entire time. You don't need to like look at it in a negative way. You need to say, this is making me better. And even though it's super hard, like, I'm going to come out a better person. I'm going to know crazy amounts of information that I'm not going to know before. And like, even though it's like, I made a 66 on the midterm and a 66 on the paper, like I'm going to have to study so hard to even just make an 80 to pass the class. Like, it teaches me diligence and it teaches me like self-discipline and to work through the whole situation. And another, I want to include these because I thought they were really cool. Okay, when it says, you will shine among them like stars in the sky, the word stars here is only used one other time in the Bible, and it's in Revelation 21:11-10, and it's talking about the holy city of Jerusalem and its brilliance when it comes down from heaven. And I thought that Paul may have been making like a statement there, you know, like when we shine like lights, we think, oh, you know, we need to be a positive influence. No, we're supposed to be like something new and something brilliant, that like to let God shine through us, that we're going to be something that's they've never seen before. They've never even like heard of that. We need to be something that's so positive and so like good that we need to just be like Jesus. And then in the second part, when it says, and then I'll be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain. One of my friends in high school actually like told me this analogy. He was like, well, if you don't live your life for Christ and you completely waste your life away, that's probably the same as slapping Christ in the face on the cross. And so I'm thinking that Paul right here is saying, like, if you do things right, and I didn't run or labor in vain, it's the same thing. And I think of Christ, and he's like, well, if you do everything you're supposed to do, and you're like working in and through my will, and not that it doesn't take away the purpose of the cross, of course, but I feel like if we don't do these things, then we're not gonna like fulfill his purpose for us and stuff. So you might as well be like, well, Jesus shouldn't have done that. You know, shouldn't have went through all that because I'm not gonna follow you anyway. The next one is look sacrificially, is my last point. There it is. In the verses of 17 and 18, and it says, but even if I'm being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me. Paul is pretty much saying, like, I'm willing to like give everything up for you so that you can come to Christ. And so, and the last part of my passage was in verses 19 through 30. It's about Timothy and Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus is such a hard name to say, Epaphroditus. He talks about like how he was, that they both like were servants to Paul and servants to Christ, and Epaphroditus got sick, and the Philippians heard about it, and they were worried. So Paul's going to send Epaphroditus back to the Philippians so they can like not have so much anxiety. And Timothy's been like a son to Paul, and like he's been a servant, and he hopes that he can send him too. And I was reading that, I was like, I don't really know what points to get from that, but I'm thinking about like the relationship between Paul and these men, and they were so sacrificial. And it wasn't like, I think we think sacrifice, like putting a few dollars in the coin plate when the offering passed by on Sunday morning. It's not like that. Sacrifice to them was their entire lives. I'm giving everything up so I can advance the gospel, and I completely want to live my life like that. Like, I just want to do everything that God wants me to do so I can sacrifice my entire being so that one person can get changed. Or my story and everything that I've been through, I'll tell it 1,000 times to 1,000 people so one person can get changed. And I actually, a couple of Tuesday nights ago, I didn't stay in the chapel, but when Bob Goff came, one of my best friends was telling me about his stories and stuff, and he was talking about how he's like, she said that he answered his phone like 2 or 3 times during the service, and I feel like as pastors, like we learn to, you know, you have to shut down and you have to like have a rest and all this stuff. But on the flip side, I want to do everything that I can for anybody that I can. You know, I never turn my phone off. And the reason behind that, it's really like sad or whatever, but my best friend died in high school, and my friends were calling me that night at like 3 in the morning, and I was like, stop calling me, I'm hanging up the phone. And they were like, because I thought they were prank calling me and stuff, and they were like, Shiloh, no, like Sujette's died. And so ever since then, I don't turn off the phone at night. Like, if you call me, I'm gonna answer. I never hit like, you know, the end button or like don't reply. I don't know. I feel like as pastors, we're supposed to give everything that we are to Him and everything to the people that we're supposed to serve. And I said, so how do we apply this way of looking into our lives? And number one is focus positively on what's ahead. It took me a while to realize that God's just not going to leave if I do something wrong. That He's not going to just poof, be gone because I failed Dr. Davis' geography class. I didn't. I'm not going to. But if I did, He's not going to leave. And so I actually realized like 2 semesters ago, like I don't know if I'm not going to have the money come back, and I don't know how this is all going to work out, and like if I can, if I fail, you know, like I just had this big moment one day, and I was just, God was just like, Shiloh, even if that happens, I'm not going anywhere. And it was just like, what? I don't know, it's just one of my big realizations that I have in my brain all the time. Anyway, and like I said, I do have this, and that this convicted me a lot. Like, why do you look so negatively on everything, Shiloh? It's going to be okay. It's getting better. I get work things together for my good purpose. And so, and I think a lot of times when we don't know what's next, it means like we think big dark looming cloud instead of like God's big great plan. And my second one is look for ways to sacrifice yourself daily. I think, oh, well, you know, I tithed this week, so I'm fine. No, it's not like that. You need to look for a hungry person on the side of the road. Or like I was in, I think, 8th grade, and I said something in Sunday school one time, and my dad brought it back up to me like 3 years later, and I was talking about like sometimes we just have to put on these like, and I thought of swimming goggles, like not the little ones, but like the big ones, and like these goggles that don't like let us see anything, like we can't look to the side like in regular glasses. We see everything through God's vision, and like we need to look for the way He views things and not the way that we view things. And again, like Bob Goff, he was doing all these things for all these people, and he was like, he put his phone number in his book, his actual phone number in his book. Like, he will be anything to the people that needs him, and I want to be that way too. And it's such a challenge. So I think the big idea of my message is like train yourself to look in a way that's positively through God's eyes so that you can follow God's will for your life. And so I'm just going to pray. And God, I thank you so much for this day, and I thank you so much for these people that you've brought into my life, and I've enjoyed being around them so much. And I pray that you just give them your vision and that you show them where you want them to go. God, if they're graduating or if they have another year, that you just show them to look through your vision, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. Noah's more confidence. Good job.
Okay, is everyone done? Okay. Let's start out with Tyler. Who wants to go?
I think your confidence has been upped a whole lot since like our first sermon, and the vocal variety.
That's what I said too. Great improvement.
Yeah.
Great improvement.
Yeah, I think your speaking voice was great. There was vocal variety. You're really easy to understand. I love how clear the points were, and I love that you repeated them. Really good.
You're so authentic too. I think I could be wrong, but I think this is one of the first times you've really shared like who you are in it too. So that was fun.
And you're like crazy quotable. Like you have that in common with Drew Guard. Like I could tweet 80% of your sermon, and so it like really sticks with people.
You are so tweetable.
Okay. I agree that you do seem a lot more comfortable than the first time, because I was here the first time you preached too, so you seem a lot more comfortable. You were 3 minutes shy of 20 minutes, so I mean that's not horrible, but and one thing that I think both preachers needed to do was repeat the scripture that you were reading. You said it one time very quickly at the beginning, and so if you're you guys know the sermon series, so you guys know everything, but for a new person coming in, it's hard to keep up with. So if you're speaking to a congregation and you're doing this series, you got to think there's going to be visitors, and so you got to think, slow down a little bit, give them time to catch up, kind of repeat where you're at before you dive in. And that's a small thing. Like it's just being thoughtful of the audience and giving them time, because you guys have all been in this together. So you guys are right with each other. But you've got to think there's going to be visitors and things like that. So be mindful of them. I thought that your illustrations were funny, and some of them were funny and true to yourself, like freaking out and on the airplane or different things like that, where you kind of let us see a little bit more of you, which is really good. You also let us see more of you when you explained your passion for the students, when you were just crying at the altar with them. And those are the moments that really helps us to connect with you. And then as we connect with you, we connect with the verse and how the verse is impacting you. I think that the main point of the message was the verse about not looking at people fanciful, because that was repeated so much. So